I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, we saw the Emperor Franz Joseph's army launch a winter offensive against the Russians, who were also cleaning up against the Turks in the Caucasus. The British Navy had scored points over the Germans in the North Sea, while the French had stopped the Germans once again at the Eye. And the British and French were now jointly making plans for a future attack on the Dardanelles. Alright, this week we're going to focus a bit on the Eastern Front and the Ottoman Empire. And actually, this year, 1915, a huge chunk of what happened that would determine the course of the war played out on the Eastern Front or in Ottoman territory. Now, it's only been a few weeks since the Turkish Third Army was almost completely destroyed by the Russians at the Battle of Sarıkamış. But the Ottomans are on the move again, this time against the British as Turkish troops advance toward the Suez Canal. This was quite cleverly done. See, they marched 200 kilometers through the Sinai Desert using wells that German engineers had secretly dug in advance so that they could keep the element of surprise. Little background here. The British had formally declared a protectorate of Egypt back on December 18th and had installed Prince Hussein Kemal as Sultan, deposing Almas Hilmi. The Suez Canal had featured prominently in British affairs since it opened back in 1869, and its defense was a pretty important thing since it was the main route between Britain and many of her colonies. The Ottoman Empire had been planning to take the canal since the beginning of mobilization. It would be tricky though, because you'd need artillery and you'd need supplies, and there was no way to attack the canal by road, so you had to cross the desert to get to it. But on February 3rd, the Turkish troops, under the leadership of the German Lieutenant Colonel Friedrich Kress von Kressenstein, really attacked. The British were protecting the West Bank, and the main attack was at Ismailia. Now, the canal is about 50 meters wide, so the Turkish forces tried to throw up pontoon bridges in an attempt to get across. But Indian machine gunners, backed by Egyptian artillery, cut them down, and the Turkish forces were forced to retreat, taking well over 10 times the number of casualties as the defenders. See, the Turks had really relied on surprise, but the British forces knew way in advance that they were coming because of reconnaissance aircraft. You could really see that planes were becoming more and more important this war. So this was the very beginning of the Sinai and Palestine campaign. In other news from the Middle East this week, the Turks suffered another loss, this one on the Persian front, as the Russians took Tabriz on January 30th. You can probably imagine how a successful attempt on the Suez Canal might have affected the naval war, but there were other events this week that really did affect it. On January 30th, a German submarine sank 4 British merchant vessels off the Lancashire coast. Following this, the British Admiralty advised merchant ships to fly the flags of neutral countries in future to avoid being